Well, there's a gentleman out there who's showing a lot of school districts, parents in school districts, how to fight back. How to fight back against the thuggish National Education Association and AFT-related unions. How to fight back against critical race theory. And how to fight their way into the school systems, which we, parents and taxpayers alike, own. And you've seen him lately. His name is Ian Pryor. He runs, or is founder of, FightForSchools.com. Ian, how are you, sir? Nice to meet you.
How you doing, Mark? Thanks for having me on.
I not only want you to tell us briefly what you're doing, but I want you to explain to millions of listeners, many of whom are parents, many of whom are confronting what you're confronting in our county, Loudoun County, on what they can do about it. I want you to inspire them to fight back. Anyway, give us an example of what's going on, what you're doing, and what they can do, if you don't mind.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, this is really infecting the country at local levels all over the place. And what you're seeing is that you have these bureaucrats, on the school boards, working at the schools that have really gone unchecked for decades. And they are putting in place curriculum and concepts in our schools that, for the most part, people haven't been aware of. And it's really hitting critical mass now, where you're seeing kindergartners being taught about white supremacy. And not the kind of white supremacy where we're talking about the Ku Klux Klan, but white supremacy as in, you drive a Volvo. And these are the things that are being sent on a near daily basis to us at Fight for Schools. And so what we are doing is saying, we are going to bring big league politics to local politics. It's great to go and talk at school boards. It's great to send letters to the editor. But these folks have had the backing of special interests for years. And so what you need to push back against these people is really raw political and at times legal power. That is the only way that you are going to make change. So that's why we set up a political action committee, and we're going to raise money, and we're going to basically run a traditional campaign against these school board members. Now, we're going to start with the recall effort, but we're not going to stop there. I said at the school board meeting today, we can do this all day, every day, until the next election, because we have more tips and stories from teachers, students, parents than, quite frankly, the school board and the administration has time. So it's really about a dedicated effort to save your children's future and going on offense and not backing down when they try and label you. Because once you push back against their claim that you're racist and you say, you know what, I'm not, I know who I am, and I'm not going to be intimidated by your labeling, that's all they have. They have nothing left, and they cannot defend their policies at any level.
Are you having success at seeing them claw back a little bit on this critical race theory? Now, you've helped expose it, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think we are having success, and here's a few metrics that tell me that. When I first got involved, it was really, a handful of dedicated folks going out to school board meetings. But it wasn't in the national news a ton. A lot of people, I call them the middle third, that may not necessarily be paying attention to this, but if they knew what was going on, they wouldn't be happy. That's where we're starting to see a lot of traction. I'm getting calls and emails from people that consider themselves traditional liberals, and they are absolutely appalled. We're getting outreach from teachers in schools saying, it's great what you're doing. Let me tell you what else is going on. So as this information comes in, it creates a continued narrative that, quite frankly, the school board and the school administration has no idea how to respond to. Because, like I said, they've had a free pass for all these years. But when you get parents that can organize, that can set up an organization, can strategize and employ tactics to really shine a spotlight of accountability on these government bodies, they're on defense, and quite frankly, what they end up doing is they'll say something like, in Loudoun County, they'll say, well, we don't do critical race theory. Well, today at the school board, I went there and FOIA'd a bunch of invoices from their equity consultant, right? That's the firm that they paid $500,000 to in 2019 to come in and tell them that they were racist. And they're currently paying this group $650 an hour. Now, I say
Wow.
They're paying them. what I should say is we are paying them. And so I looked at the invoice, and the invoice said, follow-up session teaching, coaching critical race theory development. Well, the superintendent has been saying we don't do critical race theory, so clearly you're either incompetent or you're lying. And these are the kind of sort of investigative things that parents can do through FOIAs and then, putting it in front of the school board, putting it in the national media, sending out press releases, raising money, and then eventually what we're going to do is we're going to start doing paid media. So these folks are going to get really uncomfortable when we start bypassing, the local media that doesn't cover it.
Now, let me ask you something.
Yeah.
They tried to strike back at you guys, too, didn't they?
They did. They
teachers.
did. But the interesting thing is they struck back when it was really just, a handful of people talking about this stuff. So, you had this group, the Anti-Racist Parents of Loudoun County, and they basically created a campaign in their private Facebook.
First of all, let's slow down a second, just for the. Notice how they use the names. They're the anti-racists, when in fact they're the racists.
That's absolutely right.
They're the ones promoting racism.
Yeah, everything is about identity groups to them, right? They don't want to look at the individual. So again, I read a passage from this consultant that they hired, and this consultant in their presentation on critical race theory said that meritocracy, liberalism, and equal opportunity for all perpetuate white power. Mm-hmm. These are the people that we're paying $650 an hour for.
And they take that right out of the kooks in the 1970s and these law schools who developed this stuff, and they took it right out of the kooks in the 1930s. We know where all this stuff comes from, and now it has leached heavily into our schools. Can you hold on for a minute? I want people to know if they want to learn from what you're doing, which you're doing a hell of a job, how they can contact you. So be ready for an influx, how they can contact you to get some advice. Is that okay?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. It's Ian Pryor, FightForSchools.com founder. And they are fighting, and I'm glad they're in Loudoun County, but you need to have one in every county. We'll be right back. We're with Ian Pryor, FightForSchools.com, where he's really taking on this, this destruction of our public school system in what is the richest county in America. It's going to happen in Loudoun County, can happen in anywhere, and I'm guessing it's happening everywhere. And he's explaining how to fight back. Ian Pryor, I was a school board member many, many years ago. And when I ran for office, I at the time, I didn't know all these things. I created something called the Committee for Tax Limitation. And I used that committee, and I went to what was called coffee clutches. And I was 19 years old, and we built up a strong base to get involved in the election of school board members, because I thought the Republican Party was really quite moderate, if not liberal, and not particularly effective. And I was a Reagan guy. And I used that, and we had school board meetings, and they duked it out with the union, pretty much. Throughout my tenure on the school board, you talk about FOIA, we did the same thing, and we would have these meetings and so forth. I think it would help if we could get really even one truly solid conservative who has some guts and is going to keep his or her guts when they're on the board on the inside, who can provide information. And I don't mean leak it, just publicly say, no, this is what we're doing, this is what's going on, I have the documents and so forth. Is that something you've thought about?
Yes, and I think that, one of the projects that we're looking forward to is finding those candidates, finding school board candidates that are going to understand the responsibility they have to parents and students, and transparency and honesty. Mm-hmm. And that is the most important thing that we can get in our school board, because this is something that is closest to us. It has the most effect on the things that we care about the most, which ultimately are our children and their education. And if we don't have that kind of transparency and that kind of honesty and that kind of fearlessness of people up on that school board willing to challenge the special interests, then we're in for some serious problems for the next generation.
And I find when a lot of these people get on the board, they're frauds. At least that's what I found. These so-called Republicans I ran with, they campaign one way and they get on another. But I like the activism, really. It's very, very important. I like the way you're able to get the attention of the nation and others, and this is very important what you're doing for the whole country. So if people want to learn more, if they're looking at their own school systems and they're deeply concerned, you can give them a little bit of advice, it seems to me. How would they contact your group?
So the first thing I would recommend is go to fightforschools.com, sign up for the email updates, because then you'll see everything we're doing, whether it's, the stories that we're pushing or when we get to paid media. But then if they want to email us, it's just simply info@fightforschools.com, because we really envision this as a model that will pop up everywhere in the country. Parent-centered organizations that can fight back against the special interests that are taking over our schools. And there would be nothing better to see 1,000 of these things pop up in the next few years. I
agree, and that's what we're going to have to do. And I'm going to help you do it, Ian, because I've had enough of this crap.
Well, thank you very much, Mark.
It's a great pleasure. Keep up the good work, and thank you for everything you're doing. You're a shining example to the nation.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, that's Ian Pryor with fightforschools.com. Is that the site again, Mr. Producer, fightforschools.com? Let's put it up on Parler. And you folks out there who are facing the same kind of problems, you can check it out there, and I think you'll get some pretty good ideas on how to fight this, because that's how you're going to win these battles. There's about 15,000 school districts. I might be off by 1,000 or so. Can you imagine? I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll talk about this later. All right.